East Berlin, just before 7 o'clock in the evening, the 9th of November, 1989. A tired official sits behind a desk in front of the television cameras, shuffling through a stack of papers he has clearly never read. He is holding a routine press conference for a dying government. Near the end, almost as an afterthought, he reads out a dull new rule about travel permits. A journalist calls out a simple question: when does it take effect? The official pauses, frowns at his notes, and gives an answer he is guessing at. And with a single improvised word, he accidentally opens the most heavily guarded border on Earth and brings down the Berlin Wall. He does not know it yet, neither do the guards standing in the cold at the checkpoints, their fingers near their triggers. But within hours, 28 years of concrete, barbed wire and death are going to come apart, not stormed by an army, but undone by a misread memo and one man who refused to shoot. This is how it happened. To understand that night, you have to understand that East Germany in 1989 was a country quietly falling apart. Its people were fleeing by the tens of thousands through Hungary and Czechoslovakia. Every Monday, the crowds in Leipzig grew larger, chanting 4 words that terrified the regime: "We are the people." In October, the old hardline leader Erich Honecker was pushed out. His replacement, Egon Krenz, promised reform but had no way to stop the bleeding. So the government reached for a release valve. They drafted a new regulation to let citizens apply for permission to travel west in an orderly, controlled way, with applications to be processed starting the next morning. It was paperwork designed to relieve pressure, not to tear down the wall. There was even a hold on it. Nothing was supposed to begin until 4 o'clock the following morning. But the men who wrote it forgot one thing: to make sure the man announcing it actually understood it. That man was Günter Schabowski, a Politburo spokesman. He had spent the day elsewhere and had not been briefed on the new travel rules at all. Minutes before going live on television, Krenz simply handed him a note and told him to read it out. So at the very end of a long, boring press conference, Schabowski put on his glasses and read that private trips abroad could now be applied for without the old conditions. Then came the question that changed history. A journalist in the room, most often credited as the Italian correspondent Riccardo Ehrman, asked when the new rule would take effect. Schabowski hesitated. He looked down, searching his papers for an answer that wasn't there. And then, flustered, he improvised.
Das tritt nach meiner Kenntnis. Ist das sofort. Unverzüglich.
As far as I know, he said, it takes effect immediately, without delay. It was wrong. The rule was not supposed to start until the next morning, but he didn't know that. In that instant, a bureaucratic embargo he'd never read simply ceased to exist. West German television did the rest. Watched by millions in the East, the evening news led with astonishing words: the border was open. Later that night, one famous anchor told the nation, "The gates in the wall stand wide open." It was not yet true, but by announcing it, West German TV summoned the very crowds that would make it true. All across East Berlin, people pulled on their coats and walked toward the checkpoints to see for themselves. At the Bornholmer Strasse crossing, a passport officer named Harald Jäger was watching that same press conference on a small television, and he couldn't believe his ears. He had perhaps 40 men. In front of them, the crowd swelled from hundreds into thousands, pressing against the barrier, waving their identity cards, demanding to be let through. Jäger called his superiors again and again. They gave him no real orders, only a cruel half measure. Pick out the loudest few, let them cross, but secretly stamp their passports to strip them of their citizenship so they could never come home. It backfired completely. When the crowd saw people being let out, they surged forward even harder. The pressure became terrifying. Jäger feared that people would be crushed to death against the barriers. His phone calls went unanswered. There were no orders left to follow. And so, shortly before 11:30 at night, Harald Jäger made a decision entirely his own. Rather than order his men to open fire on unarmed civilians, he picked up the phone and told his officers,
Wir fluten jetzt. Wir machen alles auf.
"We're flooding it now. We're opening everything." He gave the order to raise the barrier. and Bornholmer Strasse became the first gate in the Berlin Wall to swing fully open. In the first 45 minutes, some 20,000 people streamed through, laughing, weeping, disbelieving. Jäger simply stood aside and watched them pour past him into the west. Within hours, every checkpoint in the city was overwhelmed and open. Strangers embraced in the street. People climbed onto the wall itself at the Brandenburg Gate and danced on top of it. They came with hammers and chisels and began chipping it to pieces, the wall woodpeckers, taking their history home by the handful. And through the entire night, at the most militarized border on the planet, not a single shot was fired. The wall had stood for 28 years. At least 140 people had died trying to cross it. It was the great scar of the Cold War. And it came down in a single night, undone not by a war, but by a spokesman who never read his notes, a broadcast that ran ahead of the truth, and a tired officer who chose people over orders. Less than a year later, Germany was one country again. This was the story of the night the wall fell. Told the Sankofa way, go back and get it. If it moved you, tell us in the comments whose story we should tell next. Until then, stay upright.